Oh no, now the knee. Well, that was it. Manu, what's he done there? He's sold the dummy with a knee injury. It's a fake knee injury. That is set up a try from Momirovski.
It's the next tackle. He gets an offload. He goes back and gets the football. Probably feels a cramp coming on in the back of his calf. And then just takes off.
Oh, what a beauty. So, you pick which has been the better moment. The bloke kicking the ball back from the traffic at the southern end, or Manu, the cramp, the fibber, and takes off to set up a try.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of the Supercoach Tragics podcast. I'm your host, Dan, coach of Badonkadonk. With me tonight, Glenn, mate, welcome back. How was your week last week, mate?
Yeah, it was looking good up until 2 games to go. I was 800 with 10 played, 7 to play. And as usual, I had another injury. It was just like every single round. But I still got 1,236 or 66. I can't remember what it was, somewhere in there. And I dropped 700 spots to 5K. So it's still floundering around that area. Hopefully I can make some progress through the buys.
Yeah, still ready to pounce, mate. Still in a good spot to pounce. So.
Yeah.
And from off the bench, Timmy O, mate, you're back with us, mate. How was your week?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, boys. It's always a pleasure to get back in here and spend some time with you Tragics lads. So, yeah, not a bad round. 1269. It was looking pretty good until the last couple of games. So, I mean, 1269 is not a bad score. In all honesty, I thought it was going to be a little bit better. But, yeah, I went up 180 places or something, which I'm still around about 9K. Unfortunately, the 2 previous weeks, I went from 3,000 to 9,000. So that hurt really bad. I've still got a bucket load of trades though, and that's why I dropped. I had the option of flicking JMK when they had their bye. I didn't have a hooker and had to play Sonny Luke. So so that hurt me a bit in the previous week. And yeah, just a couple of other things like that. I had Moses. I traded Cleary to Moses in round 10, and Moses lasted his 5 minutes and got smacked. So that really cost me that round. So, yeah, basically two weeks in a row was slightly just below par. I think I was about 40 to 50 points below par, and it cost me 6,000 spots in 2 rounds, which really hurt. But that shows you how close the competition is. And, look, I've got 25 trades left. I've run no boost, but 25 trades left. I've got cash in the bank. I've got 14 players for this round before trades. And, at this stage, I think I've got 18 for next week if my 4 Origin players back up. Otherwise, 14 if they don't. So, not looking too bad.
Yeah, nice, very nice.
I got 7 Origin players.
Sorry?
I got 7 Origin players.
I've got Haas, Nico, and the other 2 will come to me.
Cleary.
Haas, Nico, Teddy. No Cleary. Haas, Nico, Teddy, and I don't know, some other Muppet.
Gosh, I got Grant, Fafita, Cleary, Hines,
Fafita, that's my
Latrell, Teddy, and I'm sure I've left one out. Oh, Toho.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had a pretty average week as well, just below par at 1248. So, first time I've seen Red Arrows for quite some time, but luckily it was only 80 ranked, so I'm sitting at 230th still, which is awesome. So, I'm still in a good spot to there. And unfortunately, I had a lot of injuries last week, so my buy planning went out the window, and I'll be scraping to get 13 this week after 3 trades. So I'm not really excited there. But the trades I'm looking at doing are probably going to be just bringing in guns as well that I can keep. So it's definitely, if I'm going to have even 12 players that I've definitely got, then at least they're all pretty good scorers. So, all right, let's move on to the Tragics overall group. So we have a new leader, guys. Had a crack of a week last week. Old mate Anthony has been in second for quite some time now. Has taken first spot there, sitting 13th overall. So well done, Anthony.
Yeah, man.
And number 2, we have Here Come the Bears, sitting at 48th overall, coming in second in our overall group. So awesome work there for those guys. So all right, let's move on to the game. So first game Thursday night. I'll start with you, Timmy, mate. Dolphins versus the Dragons, mate. Any players here that have piqued your interest, mate?
Oh, look, I'm all over Jeremy Marshall-King. I started with him, or I think I brought him in after round 1 or 2, but basically had him for the whole season so far. Look, really keen on him. He's the second best averaging hooker in the comp. only just in behind Harry, I think. And but yeah, as a whole, but also he's played less games. So yeah, look, as a whole, he's doing quite well. Those two seem to be far above everybody else. I think Cook has a decent shot at resurging now that he's not named in Origin squad. I think that'll be enough of a kick in the pants to hopefully get him to pull his finger out and get stuck in over the next few weeks. So if you're a Cook owner, I'd be pretty happy with that. But yeah, back to the Dolphins. And look, there's a lot of talk of Asako. All the guys in our chat groups and things like that seem to be really keen on Asako. He's 680K though, isn't he? So look, it's a lot of cash. I brought in Tomoko last week as a bit of a pod play. I think he was only sitting at about, I don't know, 5% or something crazy like that. So I was all over that. And unfortunately, it was 720K. He had a low BE and still only just made it. So look, it's the hard part with those guys that are the high ceiling players, but at 700K, like you've got to think long and hard about it. So I think Asako's fairly highly owned. I think he's going to be crazy highly owned after this round, but he's good for the next 2 weeks and then has the bye, so you've got to be careful.
Yeah, definitely. Glenn, mate, anyone else in this game, mate, you were looking at?
Yeah, there's a lot that I missed there. So the one that I think stands out, and I can't believe it's not one of the most traded in, actually, is Nikorima. I think points per dollar, you can buy him at 9, you can buy him at 5.8. I mean, most people got Brown, Walker, or Katoa, so I wouldn't be touching him there. But if you own Sonny Luke and you're trying to get up one of your players, I think Nikorima is perfect. He's been averaging 80 minutes. He's scoring well. He's playing at fullback. So Nikorima is the first one that I like. I'm actually taking Sonny Luke to Nikorima myself. Yeah. My plan though was I thought Katoa wouldn't play, so I was going to buy him at 5.8 and buy Sonny Luke to Cook because I'm cashed up. And points per dollar, I think they both make more sense than JMK based on dollars. So it's just my opinion. But there's a couple others. So I don't mind GMK, but I'm not going there. But Zach Lomax and Jack de Belin would be the other two that I'd be looking at. I think Lomax is a pod, and I think Jack de Belin's a very safe numbers. So they'd be the other ones, yeah.
Yeah, even on a bad game, was it last week? He probably had one of his worst games. He got 57 points, so that's pretty bloody safe with me. So, well, one thing I will say actually is, I was talking last week, Glenn, about different pod center wings and stuff, and different players we can bring in. We spoke about Panasini, Tomoko, Rapana, even Lomax. Well, I'm actually looking at bringing in because I'm cashed up galore, bringing in Asako, just because I'm replacing him with I'm getting rid of Holmes. So I'm thinking a like for like where you've got a potential high-scoring try scorer that can kick goals as well. So that's what I'm doing. But I got, even after these trades I made, I've got 240K in the bank. So I really like getting Asako this week, but that's what I've got at the moment anyway.
Yeah. I don't hate Asako if you're buying him at centre wing. I just don't like him if you're swapping out Latrell or Teddy for him.
Oh, no, I'll literally go home. I wouldn't do that. So actually, it's a bit backwards. I'm actually trading Madison to him using Bobo as a dual that I've got there. So, but yeah, I like Asako. I think I'm double downing on that as well. I'm going to VC him too against the Dragons. So yeah. All right, next game, guys. Parramatta versus North Queensland. And I'll start this time with you, Glenn.
Well, there's a lot to like in this game, mate. So, I mean, one of the players that I'm looking at, but I don't know if I'm going to do it, is Gutherson, because in order for me to get Gutherson, I'd have to sell Latrell, and I just think that's insane. But if you're in a position where you can get Gutherson, I really like it. Even though he won't play 14, he does play every bye round after there. He's got a really nice run. So if you covered 14, Dylan Brown, if you don't own him, get on. If you're one of them silly ones that are selling Hines, please be doing it to Moses. I can't believe that he's one of the most traded out Hines this week with Grant. Cartwright, if you're looking for someone points per dollar, cheaper, I think he's good value. And if you don't own Jermaine Hopgood, not only do I like him as a buy if you don't own him, I think he's actually a genuine VC option if you own Brown and Walker. You can go VC him and then see Walker. And on the other side, Luciano Leilua. I hate telling people to buy this guy. He left the Tigers. I'm a Tigers man. I hate people that do that to us. But I think he's a buy too.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to get Gutho in as well, but I'm one of the guys that's a bit light for 14. Like if I get Gutho in, then I'm going to just scrape 17 without making any more trades for 14.
Yeah.
And then you don't know what happens. Like I lost 4 players last week for injury, so
Yeah.
I don't want to have to rely on that. So I'm going elsewhere. But I've got Dylan Brown, and I've got like the Garrick. She's not playing it, so a lot of my guns are locked up in there. So But saying that, I'm going to be scared not owning some of those para players against North Queensland the way they played last week. So
yeah. Well, and the other two that are interesting is Drinkwater, based on the fact that he plays 13, 14. But I just think the Cows are playing terrible at the moment, and Robson's the other one that I've seen a few people going to, but I personally don't like either.
Yeah, I think that if you got a choice, I know you said you weren't overly too high on JMK. I prefer JMK over Robson, and I made that choice last week. So, anything else, Timmy, that we've missed, mate?
Just on the previous one, sorry, boys. The only other one that I remembered is I've got Jack Bird. He's been really handy, actually. I know he had a down game a couple of weeks. Oh no, sorry, he got pulled late last week.
Pulled late,
which did hurt me because he was one of my starting centre wings. I had to move a few things around and reverse a trade. But yeah, look, he's one that I'd be really keen on. He's actually been really handy because I've got Connolly Lemuelu as well. So I've been flicking between the two of them, between second row and centre wing. Now that you've got a couple of other options in like Peachy in its centre wing, second row, and then there was somebody else this week that's popped up as well. So look, there's a few of them that you can have there and move around, and that's actually been really handy, especially this time of year with the buys. Those are the guys with duels. If you've got to make a decision between a straight centre or a centre second row, or you've got to pick between like a front row or a front row second row, always go the guy with the duel. If it's a toss of a coin, always go the guy with the duel, because this time of year they are absolutely gold when you can flick players around and move them from one position to the other, especially if your numbers are a bit dodgy. Like if you've it's great to have one front row and then 5 second rows or something, but if you've got someone that you can move around and push them up so that you don't have to take an AE or something, it's worth its weight in gold. So bit of a heads up to any new players out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as the Para Cowboys game goes, look, this is where my buy planning, I'm hoping to God, does kick in from 2 weeks ago. I've actually got Moses, I've got Brown, I've got Gutho. I stayed away from the forwards simply because I just didn't know who was going to get picked. There was always a chance that Matto, if he was in form and not injured, he might have ended up in a bench spot. Hopgood, there was talk of him depended on who was getting injured with Queensland or who'd get picked. Maybe Hopgood found his way onto the bench and may still do so for games 2 or 3. So, look, I stayed away from the forwards knowing full well that Moses, Brown and Gutho were never going to make it. So I brought those guys in 2 weeks ago, hoping that over the next 6 weeks they pay back. Penasini is definitely one I'll be keeping my eye on. Very keen on him against the Cowboys this week. The other guys we've talked about. I don't know what's going to happen with Joey O, Joe Offengowie, now that he's at Para. I really like him as a player myself. He's also got that duel that's really handy. Para is missing a few forwards over the next few weeks. Matto's out.
Got 7 forwards out.
They've obviously got Paulo's gone. Sorry?
Lane's gone as well with an injury.
Yeah,
so.
That's right. Lane's gone. And then they've got big Paulo's gone to Origin. RCG. So there's got to be a lot of minutes there somewhere. Like someone said today, what happens when those boys come back? But let's be honest, that's 3 guys that are out. I'm sure at some stage Paulo will get a rest out of Origin, and you just never know. So you can really only play with what's in front of you at the moment. And I'm pretty keen on Joe O. I can't make it work. I don't want to make it work this week because they've got the bye next week, but I will absolutely be keeping a close eye on him for 15 onwards.
Yeah, I think as well. Sorry, Glenn. But I think with those forwards, when those good forwards come back, you've got Bryce Cartwright, who is happy to drop to the bench, which you've seen. Then you've got Davey as well, who's playing on the starting line. So there's 2 players that are already 4 guys before Joey O gets dropped. So
and then even Greg, surely they're going to play Joey O over Greg. Don't get me wrong, Greg's been really good, but you would like to think Joe O changing. He's come from the Tigers. No disrespect, Glenn, but you got a choice between very likely playing finals football or fighting for the wooden spoon. I'd be taking the finals footy. So even if he's taken a pay cut and not guaranteed a starting spot, he's obviously moved to the Eels for a reason. But I think Joe O's still a very solid first grader, and surely he finds his way into that team there somewhere.
Yeah, it's a big man at forward, Joe Offengower, but I think the ones that will go out will be Greg Hands. There's a few of them that will drop out. I think he'll move back to the bench when you've got RCG back and Paulo who'll be your starters. Maddo will probably come from the bench and play through the middle. So it will impact Hopgood, but I think Hopgood's good to own through the bye period. I'd be nervous owning Gutho, Brown and Moses. I think that for next round it could be a really nice play for you, but I think going forward, that could be scary for round 14, depending on who you've got backed up. But it's good to have through the buys. They're all good buy coverage.
Yeah, that's it. And one thing,
sorry, just on that, my logic, Glenn, was, and this is why I saved trades over the last couple of weeks, and I'm probably only going to use 2 at the most this week because I've already got 14. My logic is by having an extra few trades there now in comparison to a lot of other players have got, I'm then going to have the ability to maybe flick Gutho for a week or flick Brown for a week or flick Moses for a week and pick somebody else up, maybe with a low BE that might score okay for that particular round. And then worst case scenario, bring them back in for the next buy round. So playing the BEs a little bit and playing matchups a little bit. But that's been the whole logic of being well set up for the buys, but still having trades in hand. So like I said, it cost me over the last couple of rounds, but I'm hoping over the next 6 or 7 rounds that it does pay off.
Yeah. One thing that Glenn touched on before was that the mass trade outs of Hines, Nico Hines. That's okay. One thing I will say, and this is, and I don't say I'm not going to do it, obviously, but if you're going to trade any of those 2 players out, the most likely person not to back up for Origin is Cleary rather than Hines.
Yeah, that's right.
Hines will back up paying from the bench, way more chance than Cleary. So if you're going to choose any of those, you choose Cleary. But I'm sticking to keeping them both. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah. All righty. Next game, guys. We'll start with you, Timmy, this time, mate. NZ versus Broncos, mate. How do you think this one's going to go, mate? I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, look, this is going to be a case of the classic baby Broncos, isn't it? It's the Broncos haven't been really well represented in State of Origin, strangely enough, for the last couple of seasons. Obviously, we've been playing pretty average for a few years, and now we're starting to hit form, and some of the big boys are back in there again. Look, it's really good for those baby Broncos coming through. Really, really keen to keep an eye on Xavier Willison. He is just an absolute machine. He's a really, really good player, and he's actually at the point where if he doesn't start getting some first grade, it does not surprise me if he goes elsewhere. That's going to upset the Broncos long term, but he is an absolute gun. So if you're looking for somebody who might get a few games here and there and a few minutes over the next 6 to 7 weeks, he's definitely a cheapie that I'd be keeping an eye on. Keenan Palacia is another one. I've got no doubt he'll do really well over the next couple of months. But yeah, the interesting one, Tristan Saylor coming in. I've got no doubt that he is a solid player. If he's anything like his dad, he's going to be a Broncos legend. But where he fits in that team in the long term, who knows? He's obviously there for his Origin coverage at the moment, but I think he should be a decent football player. Outside of that, the Warriors, look, it's hard to go past AFB if you've got the cash. Whether or not it's doing a sneaky one from Payne Haas to AFB, for those who've got extra trades, it's certainly an option. Payne is currently sitting at 702,900, so you've actually got to have Payne and some cash to get AFB, which is a little bit interesting. But then Tohu Harris, I'm looking at going Tohu this week, but to be brutally honest, I am dead set wetting my pants that I'm scared shitless he is going to just get injured again. Like, the guy hasn't played 3 consecutive games all year, and that's what I'm afraid of. I want to bring him in to hold him right through to the end of the buys, and I'm just not convinced. So I don't know. It'll be a case for me of probably hosking and some cash up to Tohu Harris, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily fully sold on it. A lot of talk from people about CNK, a much cheaper option in centre wing. Obviously, he's got the centre wing duel. Not for me personally. He's got his history now of head knocks, and anyone that's had 2 head knocks already, or I think is he on his going for his 3rd head knock for the season. So yeah, look, if he gets another one, he's going to miss a fair amount of time. So that's a little bit concerning. Outside of that, I got Jackson Ford and been really happy with him, bar being pulled a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Glenn, anything else, mate?
Yeah, there's a couple. So I think if you're looking for a couple of pods, Katoni Staggs or Herbie Farnsworth from the Broncos, the upside to owning those is that they've got job security all the way through, where those other ones, you might want to pick them up, but you don't know. I think that there's going to be a lot of players backing up this year, given there's such Saturday and Sunday, a lot of the big games are played. From the other side, I just love that Luke Metcalf's back and playing.
Yeah.
He's an absolute, genuine super coach gun. But the problem is we don't know his job security. If he stays in that side, and I knew he was staying there, I would seriously look at him based on points per dollar. Also, Niokora could be a pod if you're looking for one. On Aiden Fanua-Blake, I wouldn't be doing that trade. He's scored a try in every game. 3 weeks in a row, I said to buy Aiden Fanua-Blake. That was when you should have bought Aiden Fanua-Blake. Now, points per dollar, you're just buying someone to lose money. And you will lose money, in my opinion. Having said that, Warriors have a really lovely draw. So,
what's his PE this week, Glenn? Any idea?
I could look for you if you want. I'll have a look in a sec.
You keep talking, I'll look it up.
Right. Oh, well, that's basically all I really like. I mean, I own Jackson Ford. If you don't own Jackson Ford, I mean, he's consistent. I'm not sure. I mean, he's got a good draw coverage. He plays 13, plays 14. So buying Warriors has that upside. I'd be very careful on buying Knights, Manly, or Eels for 13. But yeah, that's pretty much it, mate.
Yeah,
AFB is 771, so he's 70k more than Payne Haas, has a current break even of 56. Yeah. 3-round average of 88.7, 5-round average of 89.4. He's the second best front rower in the league at the moment with a season average of 71.3, highest score of 102, lowest of 38. Points per dollar, 10k.
That's with 4 or 5 tries in there, and he won't be getting them every week. And
you're relying on a lot of attacking starts, yeah.
That's right.
I've been lucky to have that. I've been riding that train for about 6 weeks now, so I've been very lucky there.
Yeah, I'd be holding if you own 100%.
I would say that on the flip side of all that, obviously the Bronx are missing Paddy Carrigan and Payne Haas this week. So
they're pretty heavy replacements.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for it, but look, he's it might be a men against boys type situation. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, and the Warriors are a good side this year, and I think Aiden Fanua-Blake for this particular game will play good minutes. He's even a C option. What's going on here? It's Tim frozen.
Yeah.
I can see him now. I can see him nodding.
All right.
Yeah,
sorry, guys. I
just
just
lost
had
you.
the internet connection.
Yeah, all good.
All good now. All right. All done, guys. Let's move on to the next game. So, South Sydney versus Canberra. Glenn, mate, I'll start with you.
Yeah, there's a lot to like in this game. I mean, the big talking point is Damien Cook. He's one of the most traded in. A lot of people are doing Grant for it. I don't like going Grant to Cook. Having said that, I may well end up doing it because my plan was I was selling Sonny Luke to Cook and I was selling Katoa, who I thought wasn't going to play, to Nikorima. But now I may be going Nikorima and Cook. That might be 2 of my trades. So Cook's the big talking point. The other 2 are interesting. Campbell Graham, I mean, I don't hate it, but he's got a sternum injury, so he could be a late withdrawal or even, have a problem in that game. But the one I really like is Alex Johnson and Isaiah Tass. I like that left side, period. Cody Walker, Tass, and Alex Johnson. So you can't go wrong with those 3. I don't like the second rowers. I don't touch Taff. He'll play 1 game, and he's only at full game. Yeah, and on the other side, Tomoko, you should probably own. I'll tell you who will have big minutes in this game. Horsburgh has been named at second row. So Tarpany could play some actually really good minutes being named at lock. So he's another person. If your VC fails and you just need somebody safe, Tarpany could be that person this week.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I was tossing up because I got Horsburgh and I'm hoping that he gets more minutes playing second row. He might even play the full 80 the way he's been playing. But yeah, I was thinking about because I went Maddo to Asako, and I'm thinking about I could just go Maddo straight to Tarpany, and that way I feel a bit safer.
Great trade.
Yeah. So, but then having Horsburgh as well, they're working well together, I think. So I think it's a pretty safe trade. So that's probably what I'll lean to. Rather than try to go for the ceiling, just get safely through the buys and try to make some ground up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I like that trade, mate.
Yeah.
Just a quick one on: are you concerned at all? Like he's So Tapane, I've just brought up his stats and stuff at the moment. So his current break even is 71. Projected score doesn't really matter. But 71 is his BE. His 3-round average is 65, is 59. His average score for the season is 60.9. Now, I know he's been down a little bit on minutes, but we're only talking 1 or 2 minutes. So throughout last season, his average minutes ended up finishing at 61, 62. So there was bugger all between his low score and his high score. There seems to be a misconception that later on in the season he was getting a lot more minutes and he really wasn't. We've talked about this on our Off the Bench podcast a lot, in that the difference between his low minutes and his high minutes is give or take 5 minutes. So there's really not a lot in it. It's more so just his work rate that he gets in some of those games. So I've got no doubt that this one, with the forward pack being much lighter than normal, I've got no doubt his work rate is going to be up. What that actually really means for Supercoach, I'm not 100% sure at this stage. I've got no doubt he'll get more minutes, but is that necessarily going to have an increase in points? Obviously, if you're bringing him in for a 1 or 2 rounds thing, is BE 71, so just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be bringing him in for 2 or 3 rounds. I've owned him since the start of the season. I made the unfortunate choice of starting him over Haas, and which hurt me. That's been one of the biggest hurts for me. And 3 weeks ago, I was going to buy Aiden Fonua-Blake, and I pulled out of that as well. But I personally think that Tapane is a great own at lock, especially through the bye period. And I'll be holding him. I've held him, and I'll continue to hold him.
What I'll say with Tarpany, and it's happened last year, you guys talked about him a fair bit, so you'll notice that last year he started off quite slow. Like you said, there is that misconception of more minutes, and then his work rate lifted up towards the end of the season. What I saw in his last game was that work rate lift up. I feel like this is the turning point, and this is where he starts to have that work rate for the rest of the season. So if I do bring him in, I got Horsburgh there as well, like I said, so I can go back and forth, swap them out, have one in the second row. But my front row is stacked right now. Like I've got Haas, Fonua-Blake, Horsburgh, and if I bring Tarpany in, then I got a spare front row or second row that I can move around. I think that, I think he's gone past that tipping point where he's now going to lift that work rate up. And I think that if you look at last year's stats, I reckon you'll find it was about this time last season he did the same thing. So I think Glenn, you held on for a long. Yeah, you went through the tough times. I think you've got the good times coming up, mate. So
right. I only lose money if I sold. That's the way I looked at it. I mean, I kept him there. I was going to get Aiden Fonua-Blake to sit with Tarpany 3 weeks ago. I made the error of not doing that. I bought Horsburgh, so it wasn't all bad, but it's not as good as Haas. But I'll get Haas on the way home for Horsburgh.
Yeah. Any other players in this game, South and Canberra, Timmy, that we haven't spoken about yet?
Oh, look, if you've got an opportunity to get Cody Walker, I'll be all over that. I certainly can't. I've got Brown and I've got Katoa there at the moment, so it's just not worth it. Katoa up to Cody will definitely be a trade in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, but yeah, at this stage, I think AJ I'd be all over if I wanted to do it a couple of weeks ago and just decide on the trades.
Yeah, I said that on last week's pod that before the team lists get announced, I like to muck around with some just ridiculous, crazy ideas, thinking outside the box. So I literally did a trade where I went Grant to Cook to partner with JMK. So I got 2 guns, and it was a lot easier to go JMK to Grant later on. Then I went Cleary, moved Katoa up, and brought in Cody Walker to partner with Dylan Brown. And then I also went. Then I had about 500k in the bank. So I could turn Burbo into Asako, which sounds good, but I just could not stand not having Cleary in my team. So, so that was the only thing I can do. But my team did look pretty good, just missing that little vital nucleus of my team, which is Cleary. So I pulled out of that one.
The only other one I would say from Souths, if you're looking for a little bit of a pod, as they're missing a few forwards at the moment, is maybe Junior Totola. His minutes have increased over the last few weeks. He's up to just over 50 minutes now. So I've got no doubt he'll probably get a few more over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So he's one to keep a bit of an eye on.
I think like it's saying the same voice we spoke about with Tarpany. He was the same as last year, Totola, where he was pretty average, boring average. Then at the end of the year, he came down and he didn't get average this season with 65 points towards the end. His back end of the season was amazing. So I think he's been quite injured a lot at the start of the season. I think he needs to get those bearings right. But I might keep an eye on him, and maybe if I got Horsburgh, Cass, Fanua Blake, and Tarpany, I'm not going to be bringing him in, but I do like him as just a meat and potato safety play. So.
The Souths are very similar to Penrith in that their backs do a lot of those hit-ups and it can impact their forwards, where players like the Broncos and the Warriors play a very forward-based game with Haas and AFB, so they get those bigger stats. But I am a big fan of Satola. I like him. Sorry, carry on.
I think you're right. I got Tyler in one of my drafts just because I felt like he was a safe play in the draft. I like to go to those safe players. So, but yeah, good shout out. Next game, we'll start with you, Timmy. This is the last game. And that is Manly versus Newcastle. Both teams got round 14 off, mate. So will you jump on any of them?
Yeah, not so much jumping on. I've already got Garrick and Marjorie. I've got Sean Keppie and Josh Schuster. Now, there's someone posted some stuff today about Josh Schuster. Nothing's been confirmed by any club, so just hold the phone on dumping Schuster. I know he seemed to be for about an hour and a half traded out really heavily. I'd be holding that one and wait till we actually get some kind of confirmation over the next 48 hours as to what's really happening with Josh Schuster. So just keep your eye on the mail. Look, I'm all over Garrick at the moment. I've actually got Garrick as my captain for the round. I do have Moses and Brown flipping between the two for VC. So, so Garrick is sort of my last chance saloon, but I think Greg Marshall is in for a big game as well. As for the forwards, obviously Manly pack is quite depleted. I was really keen on selling Sean Keppie this week because they don't play. I've already got 14, so my plan was to maybe trim some of the fat that doesn't play next week. At the moment, Keppie's starting, and apart from him getting sin bin last week and obviously costing himself 10 points plus time on the field, I actually think Keppie could be in for a decent game this week. So they need someone to take some minutes, and he's a big unit.
Glenn?
Yeah. So the big talking point in this game is Kalen Ponga. Kalen Ponga has missed out for Queensland. He's an absolute weapon, but he's a HIE waiting to happen. But I'm seriously, and I know it's insane, considering this option because I feel like he's got a point to prove. And I like the matchup on a depleted Manly. Manly look quite depleted to me, and I actually think Garrick as a captain is very risky. But it could be a good play. It's just we all see things differently. The other one of interest in this game that nobody talks about, but I actually like, is Lachlan Fitzgibbon. The problem though is I like Lachlan Fitzgibbon a lot better when Ponga was at 5'8", because that short ball from Ponga to Fitzgibbon was the play. I'm not sure that he gets the same service from Tyson Gamble. On the other side, Olakau'atu. I think that Olakau'atu, another one who will feel jilted not to have been selected in Origin, and he could come out and also make a statement. I'm not sure I'm going to go Ponga. It's just maybe something that sounds too good to be true, but we'll see. I want to do something that is a little bit different to try and make ground. So I'm sort of trying. That's why I've gone Nikorima, and that's why I'm considering Ponga. They're both risk plays, but they're both ceiling plays as well. They offer you that ceiling. They also could offer me 8 and a knockout like Burbo in the first 5 minutes. So, and a breaking TV.
The other thing too with Olakau'atu is he's only 602k, so he's
nice
sort of about as cheap as he gets. So he is one. I've played with a few things and looked at making 3 trades this week. That doesn't necessarily make things any better, but sadly in my 3 trades it is bringing in Olakau'atu, which means he misses next week, plays this week, but misses next week. So yeah, look, it's he's solid. Whether or not, the only thing I'm concerned about is that he does really well playing off DCE on that right-hand side. Obviously, with DCE not being there, putting those short balls through, that's my only concern.
Adam Elliott could be an option too, just quietly. I keep forgetting to mention Adam Elliott if you're looking for someone in that sort of lock position. I really like, we'll get to the vice captain and captains. We'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah. Oh, good. Honestly, I considered looking at Olakau'atu for the Maddo trade, Maddo Olakau'atu, but I think what the turning point would be, he's not playing in round 14. So I think he's going to be in for a good game. I think he's going to, like you said, he's going to have a point to prove. He's going to be destroyed. He had a lot of words about being potentially starting in the second row for Origin for the Blues, and Not happening. So I think he's going to be in for a good game.
Yeah.
But I just had to pull out. I'm looking for the future here. So that's why I think maybe Tarpany or a centre wing might be a better option.
Yep.
Glenn, well, before we go into vice captain, mate, we have some questions.
Yeah, we did. I grabbed them. Oh, yeah, I grabbed them. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Got quite a few questions today, guys. So I think there was a few there, so which is good.
All have a turn at answering them. So there's 8 questions. So our first one is from Brad Smith. So we all know who Brad is.
Sounds familiar.
Get him off the bench.
Interesting. He said, Elliott looks good, undervalued as a starting lock. Any interest? Well, you just heard me say yes, I do like him. What about you guys?
Yeah, I was looking at when I was like when you're trading and you're doing your 3 trades and you got that last one you're trying to pick and you see a green dot and you're like, oh. He just stood there. I was like, hey, well, I'll see him what he can do. But how long has he been? So honestly, I haven't heard much about him in the last couple of weeks. Is he just back from injury or?
He's played a couple of games. But yeah, he is back just from injury. Actually, I can't remember with all honesty, and I probably shouldn't. I usually do all the numbers for tonight, but I've had a lot going on. Let me just put my phone on.
Because I remember someone made a comment last week when there was no bench hooker or something, and they were saying maybe Elliott might play. So I remember he definitely played last week, and I was like, if he got to play any hooker there, I'd be all up in that. I reckon because he was quick out of tummy half for a big fella as well. So
interesting to see how they use Miller.
Yeah, that's a bit weird, isn't it? So a lot of guys will be holding him up.
And Miller could come through the lock, or Miller could move to 9 and Elliott stay at lock. It'd be interesting. But I like it. I think it's a sneaky pot option. Personally, Brad, my answer would be take a wait and look. I think there's many better options for this particular round.
Me personally, I really like the Adam Elliott trade. I've been hanging out waiting for him to come back from injury. My only issue is I have 7 players that'll be on the bye next week. So that's really hurting, which is why I'm actually looking at making some upgrades out of those 7 players this round. So yeah, look, it's a tough one. I'd be all over him if he didn't have the bye next week.
The second question is from Lockie Booth, and I'll ask you this one, Dan. It says thoughts on buying Ponga or Graham, having just missed out on selection. So he feels that they're going to both make a statement, and I tend to agree. What do you guys say?
Well, I like I said before, I was looking at Osako. I had a lot of cash to spend. I was looking at Osako. I looked at Graham. I even chose Osako over Graham just because I felt there was that injury cloud a little bit. I'm not too concerned about that, but I think the safety of kicking was better. But Ponga, with the upside and also the kicking, there is a bit of a more risk there, obviously, because he's got head knock away from being on the sideline for 7 weeks. But I am going Ponga. But I wouldn't, if you chose any of those trades this week, I wouldn't say no to any of them. They're pretty good options, both of them.
Absolutely. And the thing about Ponga is that, so he was at a lot more risk playing at 5'8" because he's defending in the front line. Playing at fullback, I think that reduces his risks of that contact. Where he does have the risk of the contact is when he goes up, and the way he goes up for the ball sometimes, he brings his legs out, which makes him susceptible to landing on his head. So, but I like the Ponga shout. And at the moment, it's a debate I'll have all week. You watch, I'll end up not doing it. You'll get 150, and I probably shouldn't do it. So you can do it, Dan, and get up to.
Oh, man, I wasn't going to say anything, but I am doing it. So don't do it, please.
So maybe I shouldn't, just to help you out, because I'm killing players this year, buddy. The next one, Glenn, what's the name of your pod? Well, Supercoach Tragic, brother.
It's right there.
Yeah. So the next one's for you, Timmy. It says, hi, it's just Lloyd Clark, Mahoney to Cook. Other hooker is JMK, H to H only. H to H only.
Head to head only.
Head to head only, right, gotcha. Is that a luxury trade or is it going to hurt me much? So Mahoney to Cook. I'd be doing that one. What do you guys think, Timmy?
Did he say who his other hooker was?
His other hooker is JMK.
So Mahoney
and Mahoney, and he wants to go Mahoney to Cook. I actually like that trade.
Yeah, that's not a bad trade. If you run Cook and JMK, you could just about hold those two till the end. Whether or not you decide to get Grant back in, that's up to you. But I think you could two first-time hookers are fantastic, top grade hookers. I mean,
yeah, they're both 80-minute hookers. Absolutely, I think they're good choices. So the other ones were from Jay Sharp. Can we reveal everyone's wives and girlfriends' teams?
My wife's team is called My Wife's Team. I literally created it yesterday. No.
Yeah, and we're going 50-50 on that, aren't we? I'm
Oh.
subscribed. I should do it. Glenn Fisher, did you buy grand final tickets for the clashing of the Cowboys?
Yeah, that was a cheeky one. I read that one. That was good.
I love it.
Yeah, not yet, mate. I'm waiting to the next win. That could be around December. Mahoney to Cook, AAP to Ponga.
December in 10 years' time, mate.
Yeah. JC and Charles has asked Mahoney to Cook and AKP to Ponga. I like them trades, guys.
Yeah, I like, even just individually, those trades are good.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Who was the one to Ponga?
Aiden AKP.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here we go. So this one's a good one. It says, it's Daniel Michael who's asked, what are the minimum numbers, Glenn? I am running 11 because I would rather focus on grabbing key sharks like Nakora and Ronaldo, etc. and Keane. So the stats are, believe it or not, I read them today, that in the top 1,000, the average number was 10. What I'll do, I'll find out Adam Drusi, if you don't know who he is.
Yeah.
He is phenomenal with those sort of numbers. So I will get onto him, find out the exact numbers for you. I can actually work it out myself using because I'm subscribed and work out. But I believe that the average number is 10. So I would a lot of them.
That's three. That's minus trades.
Full trades.
Yeah,
that's right. That's what I was about to say. And you have to also bear in mind that some of them are head-to-head players, some of them are overall players. In the top 1,000, I think you'll see the numbers will be a lot better than what they'll be as you're drifting on higher. But 11's not bad, mate, if they're quality. So a lot of times people in the past, and I'm guilty of this, have gone to 17 and I've got 12 really good players and then I've busted up the rest with shit. And I sometimes think to myself in past, if I didn't do that, I would have done better in the future because I would have held them trades and used them trades for quality trades. So
if you had out of those, like you got 12 guns, and then you got 5 shit players, if you would have knocked 2 of those shit players out and upgrade the other 3, you get a better score than you would have got if you with those other 2 players. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
And I think the tricky thing this round is you've got to look at this round and next week. I think you've got to look at the two rounds together, almost as out of a possible 13 this week and 17 next week. So you're looking at out of a possible 30 players, how many are you going to have for those 2 rounds in total?
And that's what Tim just said is really important. So like I'm really stacked well for the buys, but for round 13 I'm not because of a couple of injuries like Dan. I probably have 12. If Schuster plays, I'll have 13. But, you know, it's still, there's other players that are got 14, 15, even 17. I've seen one bloke had 17 the other day and he's like, should I get someone? And he's asking for around 13 playing. I'm like, you realise you only got to have 13, right, brother?
You can trade out. You can trade out 4 of your players and get around 14 players in for you.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So
I think that was actually your comment to me, Glenn, when I said I've already got 14 and these are the guys I'm looking at bringing in. And I knew full well that I only needed 13, but some of them were upgrades and trading guys out from this week into blokes that'll play next week. So yeah, it is a tough call. Even if the 3 trades that I was looking at making, I will actually have 17 players this week. But yeah, look, it just makes things a little bit dicey if there's an injury or a couple of guys don't back up. I'll be in trouble for next week.
That's all of them, guys.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's move into trade talk. I'll start with you, Timmy, mate. What trade you looking at, mate?
Oh, shit. I got no idea. Look, I'll be honest. I'll give you the 3 trades that I was looking at earlier in the week. And this, like I said, this gets me to 17 for this week. But I think it meant that even with backup players next week before trades, I'd only have, I think I was going to have 16 before trades next week. So I was looking at Hosking, Warbrick, and Udakamanu to Harris, Val Tafare and Olakau'atu. So bringing in Harris and Olakau'atu, Tafare, I really was hoping that he was going to get one of the backline spots. Unfortunately, he's off the bench at the moment. But yeah, look, I don't know what's going to happen there. It wouldn't surprise me if on game day he gets moved in or 24 hours he'll get moved out. So we're keeping a really, really close eye on that. If he's in the 13, then I will absolutely be doing those trades. Regardless of what happens next week, getting rid of Warbrick and Udakamanu to bring in Harris and Olakau'atu, pretty damn happy with that. So yeah, that was my 3 trades at that point in time. Outside of that, boys, I got nothing. I don't even have to make trades this week, but I'm trying to keep an eye on next week.
Yeah, like it. Then, mate, what trade are you looking at, mate?
So I'm going Sonny Luke to Nikorima.
Yeah.
I'm possibly going Grant to Cook, depending on how Nikorima goes. If Nikorima kills it, then I'm going to keep Grant. I'm going to go Toho to Olakawatu if I don't go Cook. Or the other trade that I'm looking at is Tedesco to Ponga.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's out of Olakawatu and Ponga, my last one.
I don't mind that trade.
One thing you kind of touched on a little bit there before, Timmy, was there is a very, very high chance that Tafare comes onto the field, and I can see a world where Nikorima, being a great bloody utility, can start at 14 with Asako going to fullback. So that's a very high possibility too. And that's what they may actually do mid-game, mind you. They may start where they are and then have Tafare going to the centre, pushing out, I think it's Brenko or whatever to the wing. And then having Asako finish the game at fullback. It could be an option. So
Nikorima's been averaging 80 minutes every week in 7. The one that's at risk is Katoa, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that's more what I'm thinking. I'm thinking.
Yeah, Katoa goes on the bench.
Yeah.
And then they move a few pieces around. So
absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm happy with that because Katoa was a sell for me round 14 anyway. And then I can move Schuster there, Manu there, Ponga there, any one of the three if I get Ponga. So he's a sell for me next week, regardless.
Yeah.
The plus is the Dolphins play the first game too, so we should have by Thursday night. We should have a fair idea of what's going. By Wednesday night. I know that would be now. So I haven't seen who's been dropped yet. So I'm assuming they'll come out shortly.
Good. So my trades this week, I'm using all three. So going Val Holmes out, and I'm bringing in Ponga. So that's one of my trades there. So I think that's a pretty decent trade there. And then I'm going Grant to Cook, and then Maddo is going to be out, and I'm tossing up between Tarpany and maybe an Osaka or a centre wing. So I've got some duels there I can play around with. So at the moment, I think I'm leaning towards Tarpany, a bit more safety there.
Yeah.
So that's my three trades. We'll go to vice captains and captains. So Timmy, mate, thoughts here, mate? You already kind of touched on a little bit.
Okay, go back a step. I'm just on the NRL website right now looking up Dolphins. So plenty of changes to the Dolphins. Don't be surprised to see more on game day. Brenko Lee was spotted hobbling at training and could be in doubt for the clash, which would bring Magic Round hero Valence Tafare into the run on side after being initially named on the bench. Cody Nikorima will play at fullback with Jermaine Asako remaining on the wing. Mark Nichols' thumb will also return. Kurt Donahue and Posa Sueli remain in the squad when it was trimmed to 19 on Wednesday.
Okay.
So there's a chance that Brenko may drop out and Tafare move into the centres. And, if that's the case, that will make the difference for my trades for the round, that's for sure.
That makes me feel a bit safer having Katoa. He's one of my players playing this week. So I love you, Brenko, but thanks, mate. Timmy, mate, so vice captain choice, mate. What are we looking at?
Yeah, look, my VC at the moment is on Moses and going to Garrick. I'm keen on Moses this week. I know a lot of people haven't got him because they've got Hines and Cleary. So it is a little bit of a pod play, at which point I've got the VC on him and hoping he goes absolutely huge with the goal kicking. I've got no doubt they'll score 1 billion points going through the Cowboys, especially a depleted Cowboys. So, yeah, it was a tough choice between him and Brown because I have both. I just think if the Eels score a lot of points, then Moses is having a lot of shots at goal, and that could be an extra 20 points on top of what Brown gets.
Yeah, I'd be going Moses if I got him.
Yeah, I like it. Glenn, mate, VC choice.
Well, at the moment, I've got my VC on Nikorima C Brown, but I actually think what I'm going to do is I'm going to VC Brown, and I'm looking at either going Ponga my C or Tarpany. Depending on it'll be round dependent, and I often change my captain round dependent. If I'm scoring well and a nice safe 70 or 80 points, then I'll go Tarpany of 60 to 70, 80. But Ponga and Brown both offer the ceiling that I want, but I'm so scared of Ponga. It's hard enough to own him, let alone captain him.
Yeah.
But I need to take the risks. All these ones, I keep calling them every week, and if I just do what I actually say, I would actually be blitzing it right now.
Yeah, like I am. I just listen to what you should have done, and it works. So, Well, currently, which I haven't finished my trade yet. I currently have Starko as my vice captain,
Yeah.
and going into Dylan Brown. But if I was to go the other way and go Tarpany, which is more likely, I'll VC Dylan Brown into Tarpany. But I also got the option of Aiden Fanua-Blake, who I like as the captain choice this week as well. I think that could be a nice. I know the forwards younger, they're still pretty good forwards, but I reckon AFB can sneak another try quite easily. So, sorry, Timmy.
I like Aiden Fanua-Blake as a C this week. You know, I really do. If Brown doesn't work for you, that's the one I'd jump on, mate.
Honestly, my gut says I won't need to worry about my captain this week. I feel like Brown's going nuts.
Yeah, me too.
So that's my theory. I feel like I'm getting a free loop, but I may as well. If he goes down injured, then so be it. I've got away with it. But I'm definitely going to VC him. I think it's a good option. So
I think
I just wish I could VC Brown and captain Moses. It'd be great. But, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
When I did my initial trade, that muck around one with Cleary out to Cody, I was like, because they got them both in the 5'8", I was like, I could VC Dylan Brown and Captain Cody. Oh wait, no, I can't. They're in the same position. So
can I just mention something for those of you that own Dylan Brown and own Dylan Brown and Walker? If you don't own Moses or Gutho, I would consider this VCing Hopgood and seeing Cody Walker. Because that's the only forward you have. It might not play out the way you like, but I think that he has that upside versus the Cowboys who are leaking in the middle. It could actually play out really nice. It might not. And the other one is Nikorima. I think Nikorima is a sneaky pod VC into a Brown.
Yeah, I like the Dolphins outside backs and the halves in this one because I think there could be some big points in this dragon. So
yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty, guys, that wraps everything up. Anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to everyone?
So Supercoach Tragics next week, I think we'll be going live on the Hub, Supercoach Hub on Discord. So I'll let you know on our page if that's how it's going to play out. And I'll throw up some numbers on the page tomorrow. I've been writing out some numbers on forwards and second rowers. I haven't finished, so I didn't bring it on tonight, and I didn't want to bore down with it. I just sort of go too long with them when I do it on here. So I think if I do them on the page, they're all written out for you.
You didn't want to bore me with numbers, mate. You're holding out on me, mate. Is that what it sounds like to me?
Yeah, you're in 230th, mate. He's just keeping it all nice and quiet. He's not telling Dan.
Glenn knows very well that I'm not a numbers guy. I'm a guy that looks at night tests. That's how I go. I look at the eye test, and that's why I'm not consistent. My eye test isn't always right. I got a lazy eye. That's why. So,
you know what's interesting? I just want to say something. So when I first played Supercoach, my first 3 years, the first year was bad because I was learning. But years 2, 3, and 4 were my really best years. One of them I spent in the top 20 the whole season, and then bailed out at the end because I tried different stuff. I got a feeling that was because I played the numbers. The last couple of years, right? I'm going on players that I know what they've done and think they can continue to do. I didn't have that forethought when I was early in the comp. Does that make sense? So it's almost like horses. I see people who bet on horses, and I bet on the favourites always, or those that are favourite. Like I used to go in these tipping comps, where you got to pick 1, 2, 3, and I used to win them all the time. Like, how's he winning? He knows nothing about horses. It was the same philosophy. They know what the horse can do or should do, but doesn't do. Does that sort of make sense to you? And I feel like we're carrying some players around like Tedesco at the start of the season because we know what can Teddy do. But when you look at the numbers on Tedesco, everything said not to start Teddy. And I'm annoyed that I did, and then sold and then got him back. But anyway, he had a good game this week, so that was helpful.
Teddy has been forgiven after last week's effort. So
but I was going to buy Buller instead of Teddy a couple of weeks ago. That's another one. And if I had done that over rounds per point, I would have come out better points per dollar because of the money I would have been able to use to invest in other spots like Aiden Fanua-Blake, which is I was going to buy. But anyway.
All right, guys.
Outside of that, boys, thanks very much for having me. If you haven't listened in, jump in off the bench. We're on Facebook. Our podcasts go up every Sunday and Tuesday. We do a post-round podcast on Sunday nights, and then obviously Teams List podcast on a Tuesday night. So myself, Roscoe, Brad, and Guy with Big Davo in the background. So yeah, if you haven't listened to us yet, jump on. We're in all the good places where you find us. So off the bench, NRL Supercoach off the bench.
Awesome work, guys. Jump on.
Thank you, Timmy.
See you guys next week, guys, and good luck this week in the buys. See you guys.
Stay safe.
So you want to be a champion? Oh no, now the knee. Well, that was it. Manu, what's he done there? He sold the dummy with a knee injury. It's a fake knee injury. That is set up and thrown from Momirovski.
It's the next tackle. He gets an offload. He goes back and gets the football. Probably feels a cramp coming on in the back of his calf. And then just takes off.
Oh, what a beauty. So, you pick which has been the better moment. The bloke kicking the ball back from the traffic at the southern end, or Manu, the cramp, the fibber, and takes off to set up a try.